I'm sorry there's no face for this video. It looks like my SD card ran out very early when recording the video, so I have no face footage. You've seen your favorite Magic characters in a hat. You've seen them in another hat. You've seen them being legally distinct busters of ghosts, but now, this summer, experience magic that you've never experienced it before, driving a Ford Mondeo. Aetherdrift had its first weekly MTG spotlight. It's not really a reveal, but they showed a lot of art and talked a lot about story elements of it last night, so I should cover that really. I don't know what it is about Aetherdrift, but I get left feeling very mixed. I really wish I could just feel one way or the other. In some ways, it is absolutely ludicrous in a way that I think I should enjoy, but on the other hand, I also do feel like it feels a bit cheap looking. I'll link to the Planeswalker's guide post down below that talks about the teams and how the Grand Prix will be begun in the background. I'm going to cliff note it here, but you might want to read through fully yourself. And some of the art assets on that website and on that page are fantastic. Like the beautiful, colourful top-down view of some sort of ornithopter boat thing. I don't know, there are bits of this that I really, really like. So let's get into it. If you're looking to buy anything from CoolStuffInc.com, we don't even have the assets ready for Aetherdrift yet, but Foundation is still on the site. You can get Inside Remaster stuff now as well. Use the code Kenobi, check out it, 5% of your order, and it helps to support the show. Chandra doing an Akira slide to earn a spark for her lover who lost hers certainly does sound like a synopsis for a modern Magic set. The criticism that we don't want Magic to resemble a Funko Pop collection has been registered, but it's going to take some time for that to really come through, flesh out, and for them to act upon it. The old adage is that they work at least 2 years in advance, so any criticisms now cannot be implemented into the design of Magic for another 2 years. Keep in mind that Lorwyn got pushed back to make room for more IP crossovers. I wouldn't be surprised if actually they're working more than 2 years behind now as they push things back to fit stuff that secondary teams or IP crossovers have demanded of them. I really like Universes Beyond, just to make that very, very clear. I've talked about it multiple times on the channel, but this might be the first video of mine you ever watched. I like Universes Beyond. But I also recognize that Magic has a storied 30-year legacy, and it would be nice if the grout between the tiles that are big IP crossover events, the bonding glue of Magic itself and its own respect to its own legacy would look a bit more like Magic. And Aetherdrift doesn't look like Magic, not in the traditional sense. And that's a thing that we've been battling with for several years at this point, and I guess a lot of us still aren't used to. I've said it multiple times, Magic is changing, and those changes are either going to vibe with you or not. Aetherdrift is a really mixed bag for me. Some of the face elements I really don't like. I don't like the set symbol, for example. I don't like how it's so focused around racing. The focus on racing being at the forefront of everything, which I'll talk more about over the course of this video, really does make it feel like another themed episode where the theme is surface level references, like the Akira slide. The stream, which is worth a watch if you want to put it on the background whilst you play Arena or the Bazaar, which is really good by the way, was pretty good at fleshing out some of the world building, and the world building is super interesting. The race itself is called the Girapur Grand Prix. We are entering and seeing the second one of the interplanar races. The Grand Prix itself has existed for a long time on the plane formerly known as Kaladesh, more on that in a second. But since the Own Paths and the Phyrexian invasion, it has been opened up to be an interplanar race that helps Kaladesh, which is now called Avishkar. It's helping Avishkar to grow as a interplanar, multi-dimensional power. It's giving it a soft power, sort of almost colonial thing where it can push its power and its influence, its food and its cultures to other societies. Let's tackle the name change before we get back into the racing. The name has been changed in canon and out of canon. First of all, there was a revolution just prior to the Phyrexian invasion, which led to the governing body of the plane being completely supplanted with a much more revolutionary and progressive society. They have decided to rename the plane for that reason. Out of story and out of canon, it's because Kaladesh itself actually has some, and I quote, unfortunate derogatory, colorist and racist connotations when applied to a person in a particular dialect of Hindi. Hindi being the official language of India, which is the chief cultural influence of Kaladesh. To say that's unfortunate is a massive understatement. It's a completely reasonable change. I haven't really seen anyone talking about this on socials or YouTube, but I can imagine the worst people you know absolutely aren't being normal about this. You can't carry derogatory, colorist or racist connotations anymore because of woke. So we're doing a big brum brum car race, or in the case of some people, wolf, snake, snail or whatever. A car race. The race was originally more of a underground illegal street race that was not allowed by the old governments of Avishkar. But now with the regime change, it is popular and exciting, and like I said, their chief cultural export to connect them to other planes. There's a whole division and structure to this race that makes it work like real-world racing that is explained in the playing guide that I do not want to go into right now because I don't give a shit about it. The winner of the race will get the Aether Spark, which is a Planeswalker Spark within a steering wheel-styled trophy. Now, whose spark it is currently a mystery that they are holding back from us. Could this be Khan's spark? Could this be one of the sparks from a desparked Planeswalker? Could it even be Nissa's spark herself, perhaps? Who knows? It opens a lot of interesting questions from a canon perspective. Of course, that means that Chandra has joined, but she has not joined the native Aether Rangers, the Avishkarian native team who are being captained by her mother. She's actually joined a different team. We'll come to that more in a moment. But that's her chief motivation, is to get her girlfriend a spark so they can interplanetally travel around together again without having to go through Omen paths. So the teams. The Aether Rangers are a collection of the different races from Kaladesh, from Vedalkans to humans to elves to dwarves, and they're all doing a very golden filigreed tech thing. The champions of Amonkhet, which is one of the other planes that we're moving through. More on that in a moment. But the champions of Amonkhet can be seen riding chariots pulled by giant snakes. Yeah, we're going back to Amonkhet. It's pretty sweet. They've got this Lotus motif that is semi-new. The Lotus Veil was in Amonkhet. The Cloudspire racing team come from Kylem. That's the battle bond plane. That's the gladiatorial battle stuff. So they're used to a bit of combat sport. Cloudspire look very high-tech, and they're the ones that Chandra has joined to create some interesting dramatic tension between her mother, and her home plane. Importantly, the Cloudspire racing team were the ones that won the last one, and the prize for the first interplanar race is not known right now. It's known in canon, but we aren't told about it yet because I think it's some sort of story spoiler. I wonder what it is. Maybe it's like Bolus's Gem of Becoming or something. These are all artifacts that have been hiding on the plane for a while. I think that's an interesting little lore thread to pull out too. I love this art here for the Guidelight Voyagers. They are a collection of robots all with a sentient single hive mind called the Medicant Core. These are from a planet that we don't know yet, and they're trying to return home. I assume this is a story seed for later space opera multiversal spaceship stuff. The speed demons are Winter from Tuskborn, with demons infesting their cars and ghosts and stuff. I think there's a literal speed demon. Valgavoth has allowed them to leave to hunt down and win the Aether Spark, which, if I'm completely honest, feels a little bit weird. Valgavoth doesn't feel like a really scary big bad demon when he's allowing people to leave his prison plane to go and search out stuff and do wacky side quests. I don't know. It seems like a silly backstory. But to be honest, they have a shark chained to one of their cars. So maybe, just maybe, the whole thing is kind of silly. Oh god, I just realized my camera's SD card had run out of memory. Okay, this is a video without face then. The Goblin Rocketeers are another faction from another plane that we haven't seen before that accidentally ended up on Kaladesh during the Omen Path openings of the invasion, and they all worship a thing called the Boost God, all capitalized letters. I assume is it or maybe Gruul. I'm not sure exactly on the color pairings for each one, but yeah, goblins making rockets to appease some sort of god that they don't quite understand it's actually kind of cool. The Alacrian Quick Beasts are again from a plane that we've never seen before, and they are feeding their animals Aether. Aether allowing them to grow more powerful and stronger than the average beast, dog, wolf, eagle would, and it allows them to keep up momentum and race alongside rockets and motorbikes and cars. Speed Brood are a collection of insectoid people, inverted commas, who some of their brood will go through metamorphosis to become a living car. I don't know, I'm getting some real Master Rider vibes here for some reason. Then there's the Keel Haulers, who again are from another plane we haven't seen before, but they ended up sort of through the Omen Paths living on and thriving on Kaladesh in the coastal regions, drinking Aether and being, little racing street sharks. Yeah, they're basically the street sharks. And the End Riders, another plane we've never seen before. Basically, they're from the Mad Max plane, where it's a post-apocalyptic scenario where the only thing that's plentiful is gasoline. So they just drive around fighting and beating people up. And they use the Omen Paths to escape the apocalyptic hellscape from which they came, only to find out that actually gasoline is a bit more sparse elsewhere in the multiverse. And I guess then they discovered the power systems of things like Aether and Kaladesh, and here they are, mercenaries building vehicles and doing a Mad Max. overall, I kind of like all the little tidbits, and I do actually think it's more interesting than, I guess it's going to be greater than the sum of its parts, perhaps. Like, I am initially put off by the idea, but as I read the Planar guide, I can't help but think actually some of this stuff is pretty neat. On that note, we should talk about where the ride is going. Supposedly, the Grand Prix itself went through at least 10 planes, all of which have teams in this one, I think, is the kind of the idea. So these people from planes we've never seen before, they were in the previous one that we didn't see. Instead, we've got this one going through Avishkar, Muruganda being the plain, vanilla, primordial, slightly dinosaur-y, everything is big and scary plane. Muruganda's been, I think, floating around in the background of like Magic lore for a long time, and it's always made me think it's got too much in common with like the Ixalan dinosaur stuff and parts of Alara to really have its own plane as a setting for a set. It's also it's known for being vanilla. So Imperiosaur, for example, says spend mana only produced by basic lands that cast a spell when it's from Muruganda, as we see from the flavor text. It's a future sight reference. And Muruganda was also mentioned as Muruganda Petroglyphs, which again was another future sight reference to a future plane we haven't been to yet. Creatures with no abilities get +2/+2. And thus it's kind of a difficult place to visit. It's got thematic elements that feel too similar to your Naya and your Ixalan now that we've been to those places. And also mechanically having something that is just quite simply vanilla doesn't really make for an exciting or interesting plane in itself. So here we see it being a bit player in the interplanar race. And the third plane, like I mentioned, is Amonkhet, which now has these giant Lotus-style stadium sort of look thing going on. Maybe some people wanted a full-on return to Amonkhet. I don't really care either way. I think it's cool to have some sets that are set across multiple planes if we're doing the interplanar thing. That's neat. I'm so mixed on the general feeling and vibe of the whole thing. Aetherdrift, like the Commander deck here, for example, kind of summarizes how I feel. Seeing a mummy from Amonkhet wearing a racing helmet and stood in front of a checkered flag as it's a fronted deck called the Eternal Might. I just cannot put my finger on whether this is just it's laughable but not over the top enough, or whether it is just getting onto that point of being over the top enough for me to enjoy. I guess it's maybe not irreverent enough. It's not silly enough. Have they jumped the shark but not jumped fully enough for me to enjoy it? I'm just not sure. The last thing that they covered a little bit in the stream is that boxes are getting smaller. I was going to do a whole video on this, but I just really, I don't know, I struggled to give too much of a shit. The play booster boxes are getting smaller, which is upsetting some drafters. We're going from 36 booster boxes to 30 boosters per box. And the price is changing accordingly, where the current price is meant to be based off of 36 times the price of a singular booster. The new one will be based off 30 times the price of a singular booster. Now, there's this big talking point that I've got. I even reached out to Wizards for comment on this, and they've said it's not shrinkflation because the price is changing accordingly to make the boxes cost less. And this is a point that they said, Wizards of the Coast said, was something that stores and players alike have been asking them for. And I reached out and spoke to like 5 or 6 different stores across the UK and America and asked them, and predominantly this is something they asked for. Having a cheaper booster box price is something that stores think will allow them to sell more boxes. It makes the game look more desirable, sat on shelves alongside other products, whether that be in-store or digitally, that cost less. So that's like Pokemon and Flesh and Blood and similar. Their box prices make Magic look expensive. So cheaper boxes help. But of course, it's kind of like, it's all optics because the product is not getting cheaper. They argue the product's price is staying the same, but it's not really. Don't forget, MSRP has come back, and the price of a Foundations pack was put down. It was lowered to try and make Foundations a cheaper product. However, most stores just sold it for the same old price of, of $4.99. The MSRP article and the Collecting Magic article for this set all explain that play boosters for Aetherdrift and sets ongoing are going to be $5.49, which is meant to be more in line with what Duskmourn and Bloomburrow was, but ultimately Foundations was sold at the same price anyway. So it really begs the question as to whether or not Foundations was sold at the same price as previous sets, or whether this actually marks a price increase because the MSRP is going up to $5.49. We won't really know until pre-orders go up for this stuff on stores, with some stores being a little bit hesitant to go on record about their pricing this early because the set's not out until late January, early February. I guess I'm just putting all this out because saying it's not getting any more expensive isn't strictly true if shops go along with the $5.49 price that Wizards of the Coast have put down. It will make it 50 cents dearer than Foundations and 50 cents dearer than Duskmourn and Bloomburrow. In many ways, time will tell. I'm very middling about this. I feel probably similar to what I did about Outlaw Junction, except I guess Grand Prix racing and multi-universal competition is much more interesting to me than fucking Cowboys ever was, so I guess it's steering me more towards the positive. I also think all the race teams are kind of actually interesting. I guess as I see more and more people driving Ford Mondeos and riding on the back of like, mobility scooters and electric bikes and stuff, maybe I'll feel less like I'm enjoying it. But at the moment, seeing windows into other universes and expanding the Magic multiverse is actually kind of exciting. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, who forgot to turn his camera on for this video. That's not true. I think I hit the button, but I think my memory card was out of memory, and I'm an idiot. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta for now.